So welcome everyone to the Sutta study group. We're going to start the session with 10 minutes or so of meditation, just so that we can settle in, and then we'll start looking at some suttas in Saṁyutta Nikāya. So let's sit quietly for 10 minutes or so. looking at the Satipaṭṭhāna Saṁyutta, a whole chapter of the Saṁyutta Nikāya, where the topic, the theme is Satipatthana. Saṁyutta 47.4 at Sālā Sutta. The teaching took place at a place called Sālā, a Brahmin village in the land of the Kosalans. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Kosalans near the Brahmin village of Sālā. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Those mendicants who are junior, recently gone forth, newly come to this teaching and training, should be encouraged, supported, and established in the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. What for? Please meditate, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, unified, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi, and unified, so as to truly know the body. Meditate observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi, and unified, so as to truly know feelings. Meditate observing an aspect of the mind, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi, and unified, so as to truly know the mind. Meditate observing an aspect of Dhamma, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi, and unified, so as to truly know principles, to truly know Dhamma. Here the Buddha is saying, people coming into this life, the holy life, or coming into the path of practice, as taught by the Buddha, this is what it entails. This is what we want to be doing. This is how we want to develop. The Buddha is telling us that the actual life, the actual living of the spiritual path is the awareness, is developing the awareness of these 4 aspects of our experience. When we meditate formally, we can really help ourselves by developing the first foundation and the second foundation. Why? Because we don't so easily necessarily have awareness of the body. This is something that we need to develop often. When I started meditating, I recognized how dissociated I was from this body, how it was just this thing that moved me around from A to B, moved my head around really, moved my eyes and my brain around perhaps, primarily, maybe my stomach just underneath somewhere. We can learn so much and develop so much through waking up to this embodied experience. Didn't the Buddha say the entire universe is to be found within the framework of this mind and body? This body, and the word sati, to remember, this body is like a repository for us. It's like a library. Because we tend not to pay that much attention to the body or even to feelings in the body in our everyday lives, it's very helpful when we come to formal meditation. So let's really give attention to these first 2 foundations of mindfulness. And in doing that, isn't it so that we really get to see how the mind is? Because we'll notice, won't we, when we meditate, what is the state of mind? Can I pay attention to the body? Can my mind focus? Is it possible to be aware of the more subtle aspects of feelings in the body, or to be aware of the breath? Or is the mind actually jumping around and throwing up all sorts of memories and issues, often quite repetitive, the way the mind works when we stop and pay attention? The broken record, is that playing loud? Is it difficult or is it easy to notice more subtle aspects of reality? And so we also get a chance when we're sitting, when we're meditating formally, to observe the mind. But we can also do this in our everyday activities. There's so much going on when we really open to these four Satipatthānas. There's so much that we can spend our entire time opening up to this mindfulness, which is, of course, why people choose to go and live in monasteries and such like, so that we don't have to do all sorts of other things. In a way, it's complicated, and yet this is a way to unify the mind. We're hearing from the Buddha. Actually, we're hearing two things in relation to samadhi, in relation to simplifying and unifying the mind. We're hearing that through the practice of awareness of the Satipatthanas, we develop unification of mind. And we're also hearing that we need a degree of samadhi, of focus, in order to be able to practice meditation, to be able to be aware of these four. So it's very interesting. To me, it's like they help each other. The focusing the mind, directing the mind, putting energy into paying attention in a particular way, developing samadhi, strengthens our awareness, our mindfulness, and also our mindfulness will strengthen our samadhi. And actually, it's kind of, yes, you could say complicated, and also you could say it's a decomplicating, it's a simplification. When we're aware, what can we be aware of? It's not that complicated. We can only be aware of what's happening right now. So it strips away a lot of complexity. When we pay attention to the mind, to thinking, we pay attention to Dhamma in this way, it's a simplifying, because we're not then caught up in all the complexity of thought. We're observing it. And the observing of it is a simple matter. Maybe I could say simple, but not always so easy to do. But potentially very simple. We can see, if we come back to the teaching, that the Buddha is actually giving a sequence here. And we can note that in every teaching on Satipatthana, the four foundations or resorts or ways of practicing mindfulness always come in the same order. So we start with the body, then feelings, then the mind, or mental states, mood and such like, or the state of mind, and then the Dhamma, the principles or the thinking, the mental components, we could say. When we start meditating, isn't it true, we often can be very caught up in actually, maybe in a helpful way, our attention gets drawn to the body because it's difficult, it's painful, it's not easy to sit still, for instance, in formal meditation. When we start meditating, isn't it a struggle just to sit still for 10, 15, 20 minutes and so on? And we gradually learn to become more equanimous and to allow the body discomfort to arise and pass, and we don't make such a big deal of it. And so we move beyond that. The attention then becomes a little bit more refined, and we can start to be aware of more like the still small voice within, more subtle, more gentle, more refined states, feelings, and then beginning to notice actually not be caught up in, but notice, how is the mind? This is actually quite a big step. This is quite something amazing, to be able to be conscious of what we're conscious of, to be able to step back from our experience and not be so identified with it, to see then, to begin to see that it's conditioned, it's impersonal, it is changing constantly. There is this progression often, and when we're practicing, not just on the cushion, but in day-to-day life, we can find that as the years go by, our awareness deepens and we become more and more adept. This mind, the thinking process, which is completely natural, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. The problem is that we can get so identified with, that we are often so caught up in our thoughts that we really do feel these are my thoughts, this is my mind. And this is where all our dukkha comes from. This is where all the suffering comes from. So we start to recognize it's not the body that suffers. The body's absolutely fine. The body gets sick, the body gets old, the body dies. Completely fine. It's natural. It's part of nature. It's doing what it naturally, beautifully does. The only problem is the mind that doesn't want it to be like that, or that has some strange ideas about reality that don't fit the bill. So we can start to really work deeply with dukkha, and to start to really come out of suffering, to really liberate the heart, is to work with the mind. But in order to do that, it's really helpful to always have this refuge in mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body is mindfulness of the truth. The body is true. It's sincere. It's honest. It doesn't have a facade like the mind, which is a trickster, which is deceptive. We delude ourselves endlessly. We're so deluded that we don't even know we're deluded. You know, it goes on and round and round. But the body is just what it is. It's earth, it's water, it's fire and it's air. It doesn't dissemble. It doesn't delude us. It's honest. It's real. And we can see the mind from this perspective of body awareness so much more clearly, with so much more ease, with a sense of being able to let go of the identification. Sometimes we need a framework to help us to be developing mindfulness of Dhamma, developing mindfulness of the mental constructs, because it's a galaxies away. I mean, we can be anywhere and everywhere. The mind is remarkable, isn't it? The way we can move, and the multiplicity, the complexity of this mind. It's difficult to stay steady sometimes. It can be like a flood of thoughts, associated feelings, emotions, and so forth that can arise for us when we pay attention to the mind. And so to have a framework like the 5 hindrances really helps us, because it's like whatever comes up, we can categorize it. And as soon as we start categorizing, is this desire? Is this aversion? Is this doubt? As soon as we start to categorize, we've already kind of taken a step back. We're already objective, at least to some extent. And this 4th section of the Satipaṭṭhānas, this 4th foundation, they're a very important part of our developing mindfulness of Dhamma. We can understand that we need to have a handle on the mind in order to begin to meditate at all. And we need a certain degree of samadhi. We need a certain degree of stillness in order to be able to begin to contemplate in this way. Notice what gets in the way for us. Notice any obstacles that arise. And we can categorize them, yes, into the 5. Just very briefly: desire, sense desire, aversion, these two, and then restlessness or sleepiness, dullness, and doubt. And it's really wonderful that every single mental obstacle that arises for us can be basically not just mental, but also physical obstructions to our practice can fit into one of those 5 categories. Talk about simplicity. Talk about the ability to make the complicated simple. This is one the Buddha's teachings in so many ways help us to tease out and simplify. And this is a great example of this. Principles is Bhante Sujato's translation, but we can see that it's Dhammanupassino is the actual Pali instruction for us. This is a translation. I mean, we can translate this word in all sorts of different ways. It's a really great translation because it really covers the meaning in this context of the word Dhamma. Dhamma, with a small d, means thing or things. It's like a descriptive. But in the context of the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta and of this teaching, there are these 4 foundations. So we have body, feelings, mind or mental states, and then this other one, this 4th one, the dhammas. And so it would really seem that this is referring to mental phenomena. And people will translate this sometimes as simply as thinking. When we look at the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, there are actually a number of different categories within this foundation, within this aspect of our experience. So, for instance, the Buddha talks about the 5 hindrances, the 7 enlightenment factors as aspects of Dhammanupassana. But the simple practice for us on a moment-by-moment basis is what? What can we be aware of in this regard? We can be aware of thinking. We can be aware of the mental constructions that are going on. The fact that thought is linear. It's one thought after another. It's initially, at least, and probably for many of us, we have the experience of the kind of wild nature of this aspect of our experience. Like the monkey jumping from branch to branch. Thoughts will come thick and fast and quite almost random sometimes. Sometimes we'll have a fixed groove of thinking. Sometimes we'll have all sorts of thoughts coming up when we sit and meditate. It's almost like we're inviting the mind to declutter, aren't we? And so the Dhammanupassana can be an experience of just looking at this extraordinary flow. And we have the opportunity then to really understand certain things about it, which are such as that it's conditioned, that there's cause and effect operating here, that it's not really personal, and so forth, constantly changing. It's great to look up in a Pali dictionary the meaning of the word Dhamma. That's a very helpful exercise. I recommend all of you to get a Pali dictionary online. You can get these apps on the phones. I have one and it's brilliant. You can look up words just like that and see. But the literal meaning of the word Dhamma is thing. Now, just to summarize what we've already covered, we had the place where the teaching was given and the words of the Buddha telling us those who are junior. And we can say in this regard, I think we're talking about people who start meditating, people who start practicing, those of us who are at the beginning of the path. They should be encouraged, supported, and established in the 4 Satipatthānas: body awareness, awareness of feelings, awareness of mind or mental states, an awareness of Dhamma or principles or phenomena, mental phenomena. They should be keen, aware, at one, with clear minds, immersed in Samadhi, that is, one-pointed, focused, and unified, so as to truly know these four resorts. The Buddha goes on. Those mendicants who are trainees, who haven't achieved their heart's desire, but live aspiring to the supreme sanctuary, they also meditate, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, at one, with clear minds, immersed in Samadhi and unified, so as to fully understand the body. They too meditate, observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, at one, with clear minds, immersed in Samadhi and unified, so as to fully understand feelings. They too meditate, observing an aspect of the mind, keen, aware, at one, with clear minds, immersed in Samadhi, unified, so as to fully understand the mind. They too meditate, observing an aspect of Dhamma, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in Samadhi and unified, so as to fully understand Dhamma. A little bit of repetition that we find in so many suttas, emphasizing, also it's a simplifying. How many times do we need to hear the same things? Pretty much every day, I need to be reminded of the basic teachings in order to train the mind, in order to direct the mind toward Dhamma. It's poetic, it's emphasizing again and again, like how we take the 3 refuges 3 times, how we pay homage to the Buddha 3 times. Why? First time, we're kind of arriving, maybe. Second time, we're just about landed. We're just beginning to be here. And the third time, we might actually be present. But what we're really hearing here is that it's exactly the same, isn't it? It's exactly the same teaching. It's exactly the same practice. And I think that's a really important point for us to consider. So whether you're a beginner, you've just started meditating, it's your first time, you're not really sure what you're doing, but you're going to give it a go, or whether you've been meditating for your whole life, for most of us, for your whole adult life, but you're not yet, you're aware that you're not actually yet fully liberated, but you are surely on the path. For such a one, the teaching is precisely the same. One of the interesting aspects of the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta is, and all of these teachings in this Saṁyutta are kind of a riff on that. The Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta makes a very strong statement, which repeats again and again in the course of the sutta, which is this phrase, ekāyano maggo. The Buddha says this practice of the 4 Satipaṭṭhanas is ekāyano maggo. It means maggo is path, and ekāyano, eka is one, and yano is like a vehicle. One vehicle path. And this is variously translated, variously understood, but the most clear meaning is that this is the direct way. It's a one-way street. It's taking you to the end point, which is Nibbana. And it's direct. In some translations, it's written as it's the only way. And that's the reason it comes to my mind, because one could say the Buddha is very clearly stating here that this is it. This is the practice. This is the direct path. So for anyone and everyone who's capable of discernment, this way of practice is going to lead you inexorably towards Nibbana, towards liberation. But there may be some folks who find that this is not immediately appealing, or there's something about this way of practice that is difficult, inaccessible, and so forth. I'm just reminded of at the time of the Buddha, there was a person who was mentally challenged, not very bright, not very capable of stringing thoughts together, and considered to be quite handicapped mentally. And the Buddha gave him a practice, which wasn't the 4 Satipatthānas. He got him to take a piece of cloth and he asked him to just rub the cloth. And that was his practice. And he could do that. And through doing that, this person became fully liberated. He had insights. He had all sorts of realizations as the cloth became more and more filthy as he's rubbing the cloth. But what's really interesting about this practice is that it does incorporate the Satipatthanas, but it's in a different way. The teaching was given in a very different way. And he's just using touch and movement and awareness of that. In the 4 Satipatthanas, we're aware of touch, we're aware of movement, we're aware of the body in a more open and general way. But one could take almost anything as an object of meditation and make progress on the path. Because it's that quality of, as it's saying in this sutta, let's just have a look again. It's quality of keenness, awareness, at oneness, having a clear mind, immersed in samadhi, which I would say is, it's ekāgata citta, is the Pali. It means one mind with thoughts concentrated on one object. This is how we're invited to practice the 4 Satipatthāna. And in any practice, this is what is developed. It's the body in the body, or aspect of the body, aspect of the mind, of feelings, of Dhamma. If we talk about the body, the whole body, that can be overwhelming. It's so much. The 4 Satipatthanas is so much, the entire universe. But can we open to that, or do we need to actually do, as the Buddha's telling us, have a way of practice which is to focus, to become one-pointed? It leads on to the question of samadhi and vipassana, because samadhi is required. We hear this again and again in relation to the 4 Satipatthanas. It's like we want to be developing a one-pointedness. And through that one-pointedness, our mindfulness opens up too, because the more you focus in, the more you see, the more you can be aware of. The focusing itself is opening up, revealing, unfolding. For many people, there needs to be, rather than trying to consider the whole body, to come to one thing like the breath or some part of the body that works. It is one thought at a time. It is one feeling at a time. Can we really be present for that? And in this way, keep developing samadhi, keep developing focus. But for some people, it works to open wide. Having said that, just to not to disconnect with anybody who might have a different kind of experience. For some people, it's really meaningful to feel the whole body, the entire body, breathing, for instance. That can be an experience too that can be very helpful. Depends on the person. When we are invited to pay attention, to be mindful of the body, just see what happens, see where the mind goes. We can't go wrong. It's like there's nowhere we can go within this framework of the body that is not okay. And that's a wonderful thing to be aware of. However tiny or however great, it doesn't matter. It's just what works for you. How does the mind work in this case? Oftentimes, the teachings that we find in Mahayana, you can trace them back to Theravada. And that's not surprising, is it? Because Theravada's going right back to the time of the Buddha. We can trace it back, and it's really wonderful to see, to come back to the root teachings and to see then how they've developed in the Mahayana traditions. If you find that to sit and start meditating is difficult because the body is tense and needs something different to relax it, then to get up and do whatever it is also part of the practice, right? So you can mindfully walk or do some yoga, stretches, or whatever it might be, and consider that to be a good preliminary practice before sitting still. You can't really go wrong because whatever posture we assume, that's a springboard, that's a place of mindfulness for us. We can be aware of that. And so meditation isn't just sitting on a mat, it's every kind of posture, every kind of bodily practice that we need to do, like eating, defecating, urinating, and always we can be observing the mind in any situation. So in this regard, it's all practice. The practice is the same for us, whether we're at the beginning of the path, whether we're on the path but not yet at the final destination. The teachings of Ledi Sayadaw, who was a great monk in Burma in the last century, 2 centuries ago, who became an arahant, and the only thing that he taught in terms of meditation was anapanasati, watch your breath. That was it. That's enough. It covers all the bases. It covers all the Satipaṭṭhanas. Those who are trainees, who haven't yet attained their heart's desire, but live aspiring to the supreme sanctuary, they too meditate, observing the 4 Satipaṭṭhanas. The Buddha went on to say, those who are perfected, who have ended the defilements, completed the spiritual journey, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, achieved their own goal, utterly ended the fetters of rebirth, and are rightly freed through enlightenment. They too meditate, observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi, unified, detached from the body. They too meditate, observing an aspect of feelings, keen, aware, at one, with minds clear, immersed in samadhi and unified, detached from feelings. They meditate, observing the mind, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi and unified, detached from the mind. They meditate, observing an aspect of principles of Dhamma, keen, aware, at one, with minds that are clear, immersed in samadhi and unified, detached from Dhamma, detached from principles. Buddha goes on, those mendicants who are junior, recently gone forth, newly come to this teaching and training, should be encouraged, supported, and established in these 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. So what a beautiful ending. And I just want to make the point, the obvious point, that the teaching, the practice, the 4 Satipatthana practice is the same for all, whether we're beginners, whether we're on the path, or whether we've come to the end of the path. and we're free from all suffering, still, this is our place of mindfulness. And the important difference we can pick up is that for those who have come to the end of the path, who've laid down the burden, whose work is done, they dwell detached from body, from feelings, from mind, and from thinking, from dhammas. So I leave that with you to contemplate. Wonderful teaching, as always, of course, with the Ayya Sutta. There's always so much, isn't there, for us? So let's continue to benefit from this teaching